good to be with everyone today, and thanks for taking the time to be with us. And I'm excited. I'm excited to share some things about data. I'm passionate about data, and I'm very excited to share some of those things with you today. To get started, real quick, I'll introduce myself. I'm Nate Alphin. I'm a principal with Eide Bailly Analytics. I'm based in Orem, Utah. I've been doing data warehousing and business intelligence for, dating myself here, 20 years or so. I work with our sales and delivery team here to help our clients with their data needs. And I'm joined today by Josh Haynes. And so I'm going to let Josh take just a minute and introduce himself. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I've been with Eide Bailly for coming up, I think, 2.5 years now. I've been doing data analytics for 4.5 years with an emphasis in visual analytics. So I really love tools such as Tableau and Power BI, and I'm happy to kind of get to demo Tableau for you today.
Great. I appreciate Josh joining us. And just to give you a little sneak peek, Josh will be doing a demo for us at the end. So you'll want to stick around for that. It'll probably be the most exciting part of the presentation, as it will really bring some of the things that we talk about to life. So I'm excited for that, and glad Josh is going to join us and is with us.
All right, we're going to kick it off with a polling question here. So make you do some math right off the bat. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost?
All right, this is great. Okay, very, very helpful. Okay, so moving on with our slides here. There's this quote from Daniel Kahneman from the Wall Street Journal, and I like this one because it says, when people face an uncertain situation, they don't carefully evaluate the information or look up relevant statistics. Instead, their decisions depend on mental shortcuts, which often lead them to make foolish decisions. The shortcuts aren't a faster way of doing the math, they're a way of skipping the math altogether. So going back to our question of a bat and a ball, the question was, a bat and a ball together cost $1.10, and the bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? And I think 64% said 10 cents, which, when you just first look at that question, that's naturally where your mind is drawn towards, is 10 cents. But if you actually think about it, if the bat costs $1 more than the ball and they together cost $1.10, that means the ball needs to cost 5 cents and the bat costs $1.05. And so a little bit of trickiness going on here. We threw something at you here to kind of make the point that it's important that when we're looking at situations, we actually do the math. And as we go through this presentation today, we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can make sure that we're doing the math when we face important, critical decisions with our organizations. So thanks for participating in that with us. So want to also talk about the fact that over the last few years, I think we can all agree that it's been an interesting few years in terms of business and organizations and how we do business. And I like this quote from Satya Nadella from Microsoft, the CEO. He says, "We've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. From remote teamwork and learning to sales and customer service to critical cloud infrastructure and security. We are working alongside customers every day to help them adapt and stay open for business in a world of remote everything." And so one of the things that we're going to talk about as we go through this today is the way that data is continuing to explode and be more relevant in our organizations and in our culture. And so I thought this was interesting, just pointing out the fact that digital transformation is speeding up, and there's no sign that it's going to slow down. So just to lay out an agenda today, we're going to explore really 5 key things here. The first being how data chaos impacts operations and performance within our organizations. We're going to look at analyzing the elements of an effective data strategy. We're going to explain the function and purpose of a data warehouse. So if you're not familiar with the concept of a data warehouse, after today's presentation, I hope you'll be able to feel like you have a good understanding of what a data warehouse is and how it's used. Look at kind of the steps to centralize and build a data foundation within your organization. And then hopefully with Josh's presentation at the end, we're going to demonstrate some real life examples of data in action. So that's really the agenda that we hope to cover, and I hope it'll be beneficial. So just want to really quickly introduce at Eide Bailly, how does data and analytics fit into what we do here at Eide Bailly? Eide Bailly Analytics is a subset of the technology consulting portion of our business, which is part of our specialty service. As you know, Eide Bailly is most of you are probably aware, Eide Bailly is a top 20 CPA firm that does a lot with tax and assurance. And we also have a lot of specialty services that we provide to our clients as well. As you see around this technology consulting, we have advisory services, we have cloud security, ERP, CRM, and then data analytics is the group that we here and focus on. And we work a lot with the other groups within the other sister groups within our technology consulting group. And as we kind of drill in on our services, we focus on really the core pieces of our service offerings: our data warehousing, data science, data strategy, KPIs and dashboards, custom BI reports, data lakes, all the things that kind of surround the data ecosystem. And along the right-hand side, you can see some of the vendors that we work with that help us to deliver world-class results to our clients. And those include Snowflake and Alteryx, Tableau, which you'll get a closer look at today, Microsoft Azure, Power BI, Databricks, Apache Airflow, and DBT. I'm sure some of you are maybe more familiar with some of these than others, but these are all, you can kind of think of these as tools that we have in our toolbox that we can use to help clients achieve their data goals. So let's get to our first point, which is, how does data chaos impact operations and performance for organizations? And when we think about data and how organizations want to use data, sometimes it's interesting to think about, what do we not want? And generally speaking, when we think about what we don't want chaos, right? We don't want organizations feeling like they don't know what's going on, and that it's a little bit of the wild, wild west out there. And that doesn't mean that if it's that way that we can't help and that things can't get better, but it's important to understand kind of what are some of those signs that we might have some challenges when it comes to our data within an organization. So I'm going to walk through some things that are typical to what we see. And if there are things that you don't hear in here that you want to put in the Q&A, be happy to talk about those things, but we're going to go through a few of these. So the first thing I want to talk about is inaccurate or inconsistent data. And when I first started into my consulting career and I started working with different organizations, I would say the most common thing that I would hear when I would go in and meet with the leadership and C-level executives of an organization was, how come when we have a meeting and I have marketing there and I have my sales organization there and I have finance, when we start talking about numbers, why is it that they always have a different version of the number when they come to the meeting? And it was always a key frustration level for organizations. And specifically the CEO or the CFO, when they would feel like, why is everyone reporting a different number when they come to meetings? And that, I categorize that as inaccurate or inconsistent data coming through within the organization. The next point is the idea of islands of data in disparate systems. I've been working with a client recently, and we've been working with them on developing a data strategy. And as we went through the process of working with them, we identified over 40 different systems of data that they have within their organization. Now, all of those systems weren't all of the same level of importance, But it kind of illustrates the fact that within many organizations, the key data that exists within an organization is not generally centralized in one particular system. As we think about the way that the cloud and digital transformation has evolved over the last, let's say 10, 15, 20 years, we're seeing an explosion of cloud applications. And we find that on average, most organizations exceed at least 20 different sources of information that they have for their organization. And that becomes very difficult, as most of those systems do not communicate well between one another. And oftentimes it's hard to make data tie across those systems. The next challenge that we see is manual data processes. So if we go back to our previous example of islands of data, oftentimes the solution for organizations that maybe haven't fully embraced a data strategy is that I need to go and extract that information from these different systems, and then generally I'm going to put that data into something like Excel or maybe Google Sheets, and I will use some formulas and VLOOKUPs and pivot tables to try to generate this kind of one version of the truth living inside of a spreadsheet. And some of those things are more sophisticated than others. We've seen some very sophisticated things built by clients, but the challenge is those are manual processes. They're often prone to error. They're not usually repeatable, meaning you could pass it along to someone else. Generally, the institutional knowledge around that process lives with one individual. And oftentimes the results of those spreadsheets are not easily shared out to the rest of the business. Okay, so the next point I want to discuss is this idea of rear view mirror versus looking forward. Oftentimes and especially when we're dealing with the Office of Finance, we're very used to getting these reports that come out at the end of the month that are, the balance sheet and the income statement and cash flow. And those things are very much looking at what happened in the previous period. And oftentimes we don't get those reports until that period has ended and we have finished, with what we were doing for that month. And so it's difficult during that period to make changes. And so rather than looking at what's happening now or what may happen, we end up looking at the end of a period and looking back and saying what happened. And oftentimes when we do that, there's not a lot of time to make changes or adjustments. And so we're forced to make those changes, hoping that maybe the next period will be different. And so, as we look at that, that's a common challenge that we hear from organizations. Another one is this idea of the lack of timely access to data. And this kind of goes back to the previous point of something, as I'm transacting my business, as I'm going through my daily process of running my organization, I'm generating data, but that data is in systems. And oftentimes, as that data is generated, it's not really bubbled up to where I can see what's happening. And so I'm either, again, waiting till maybe the end of the month or the end of the week to see what happens. And I don't have a good insight into important things that are happening within my data. One example I like to think of with this is I like to think of the way that my bank helps me monitor my checking account that I have with the bank. I know that as I go and use my debit card and I'm doing different things, I'm generating data. And what I've noticed that financial institutions have done a really good job of is being able to track that data. And the minute something looks out of bounds for them in terms of maybe suspicious activity on my account, they know that. And not only are they aware of it, then I get a text on my phone that says, we noticed suspicious activity. Did you do that? If we were looking at this, if banks were still looking at this from the standpoint of waiting until your credit card statement came out at the end of the month, that has in the past and would cause a lot of challenges. And nowadays we're used to the idea of being notified when something happens and being able to take action on that. And so I like that concept of being able to bring timely data to the surface when we need to, so that we can take action on that. The next point is time to value. Oftentimes, we find that organizations feel like that the time it takes to build reports or bring data to the surface, that just takes too long, and it's hard to get to those results. And so they're looking to put a system in place that will allow them to bring that value to the surface quicker and not have to wait for, weeks or months, or even sometimes in the worst case scenario, years to get to things that are really valuable. And this last one is really this idea that sometimes we can go down a path of building reports. And, I mentioned on one of the previous slides that there's some softwares that we like to use to help our clients to visualize their data. And one of those is Tableau. And we're going to see a demo of that at the end of the webinar. But sometimes we see something like a tool like Tableau be employed to build reports and visualizations, but sometimes there's a lack of organization of data on that didn't happen, and we'll touch on this in just a little bit. But I wondered if maybe Josh could just chime in a little bit on maybe what he's seen in this when it comes to making sure that we don't just focus on reports, but that we think about the overall kind of data strategy.
Yeah, so I can talk on this point that I've worked with some clients where, and it's tempting for everyone, right, to say, oh, I like that pretty chart, I like that dashboard, that demo was fantastic, I want that, and I want it tomorrow. And so the fact of the matter is, I can build it for you tomorrow with just connecting directly to maybe an Excel sheet or an export out of your systems, build something really quick and put it out there. But guess what? On 2 days from now, that data is going to be stale and it's not going to be accurate. And so then I have to do the whole thing again and redo things and bring it back in. And so just going straight for the visualizations is tempting, but it's not the ideal situation because it will not scale with your business. It will not keep up with the flow of information and data that's coming in these days. And so you need to kind of create this data culture and these data models and data warehouses that these visualization tools can connect into, so that the visualizations can stay up to pace with the data flow.
Yeah, that's a great point, Josh. Thanks for that. And it kind of goes back to that idea of a manual data process. We've taken maybe that manual data process that we were doing with Excel, and now we've just moved it into a little bit more modern tool, but we haven't really solved the underlying challenge, which was it's hard to gather data up and make it accessible and easy to use.
Exactly.
So great points, Josh. Okay, so those are some of the main challenges that we see within organizations. And another way that I like to think about analytics and business intelligence, as we sometimes call this, is that most organizations are on a path of maturity when it comes to how they use and leverage data as an asset for their organization. So as you see, and I know there's a lot of words on this slide, but we find that most organizations, as you can see is illustrated on the slide, typically start kind of on the low end of the two in terms of the spectrum here. And if level one we're categorizing as being unaware, that would be where maybe we're using spreadsheets and we're doing one-off report requests. And there really hasn't been anyone who's come in and embraced ownership of a data strategy as an initiative for the organization. So as you start to move into level two, you become a little bit more opportunistic. IT is kind of driving maybe some initiatives. There's still this idea of siloed, disparate systems, but we're starting to gather that information together. And then as we move from a two, as we build some reports and we move up to a two, we see that business executives, the C-suite, start to become champions of an organization and the data strategy that they have. And so we start to develop some standards. There maybe starts to be more budget approved for these types of projects. And then one of the things that I really want to call out that I think is interesting is that as organizations mature along this path, the CFO or the COO becoming sponsors of a data project actually show quite a bit of maturity in terms of of an organization's path towards being better with data. And I attribute that to a couple of things. One is that I believe that the CFO and the COO tend to view the organization from a very strategic level. They are interested in the organization getting better, in improving, and not that the other department heads aren't, but they have a more general overview of the organization that tends to be more strategic. And that's kind of in a little bit in opposition to maybe a technology focused, which technology tends to focus more on tools and the ways that we're going to do things, where the CFO and the COO tend to focus more on the why are we doing things. And as that why begins to align with the data needs that you have, then we see organizations really maturing up into that. And as you get up further on this maturity path, we're trying to go from reporting to more transformative type things, where maybe instead of looking at what's happening now, we're trying to forecast what might happen in the future and what are the changes we need to make within the organization to get to that spot. So, Amy, I'll let you take it away.
All right, we're at polling question number 2 here. What is the biggest way data chaos has affected your organization? Let us know. Close on time today, just with all the information we want to give you. So, Nate, we are sitting at 35% said manual data processes and
Okay.
26% this is inaccurate data.
Okay, so inaccurate data and manual data processes, that is not terribly surprising. All right, so let's kind of shift. We've been talking about the challenges. Let's give everyone some hope here. Let's give everyone some hope that things can get better. And so we want to talk about the elements of an effective data strategy, and what do we need to do in order to treat our data as an asset. And one of the things that's interesting here is that everyone wants to have a data culture, but it's pretty clear from some of the surveys that we see that we've done and that we see others doing out there that most organizations haven't really gotten to this stage yet. 72% of survey participants reported they had not really gone down a path of forging a data culture. 53% stated that they are not yet treating data as an asset. And 52% admit that they're not really competing based on the data and the analytics that they have. And I know from visiting with clients that really is the end goal. Most organizations want to be able to compete on data, but over half right now don't feel like they have that ability. So let's talk about how we can change that. So we're going to talk about the elements of a data strategy. And really, I want to point out 5 key elements that I see that are really important for developing a data strategy. And I'll run through these real quickly, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail on each of these. And the first is really defining your business requirements. The second is gathering the source data. Third is this idea of a technology and infrastructure need. 4 is making sure that you're getting to insights with your data. And then 5 is, what are the people and processes that I need to put in place to really achieve the results that I'm looking for? So let's take this one at a time. When we talk about a data strategy, really, a data strategy is the foundation of all of your data practices. It's not just, as Josh said, it's not just building a couple of reports and throwing them out there to people. It's a long-term guiding plan that needs to define what your people, processes, and technology are. So, the first step in that is you've got to make sure that you're aligned to your organization. So step 1 is identifying a champion or a stakeholder. And that champion is very important. And most often we suggest that champion be someone on the executive team. And typically either the CFO or the COO. And so identify that champion, and then identify the key stakeholders. And then also understanding those subject matter experts within each functional department that are going to help you to understand the needs that organization has. Now, the second step, and I do this a lot with my clients, is interview the executives and the department heads. As you go through these interviews, you start to understand what they're hoping for, what they're trying to accomplish, and how data can assist them in making the critical decisions that they need to make and want to make for the organization. The third is to define these departmental goals that each department has. And you want to align your data strategy to those departmental goals. And then number 4 is to really align the KPIs, those key performance indicators, to those departmental goals. So then as you start working backwards to understand the data that you'll need to bring those things to the surface, those key data points are all aligned to the goals that the organization has. Okay, the next step in this process is gathering the source data. So I kind of like to think about this as we know the data, we know the key elements that we need, we know the data points that we need. Now we need to go find out where that data exists. We need to analyze where it is and how are we going to, and then once we figure out where it is, how are we going to get access to that? And is that data internal to our organization, or is some of that data that we need, is that external? And how are we going to find that? And this is a very important exercise because it's going to help you understand the way that your organization is treating data, and it's going to require you working with IT and potentially with some outside vendors potentially to understand those critical data points. How do we get access to those, and how do we move that data into some place where we can start to work with it and really calculate those key metrics that we need to run the organization. And for non-available data, determine how to begin capturing and retaining that data. Many of you may have heard over the last few years these ideas that it's important to digitize your data. Sometimes organizations are working off of paper, and so you think about trying to bring data in and build key performance indicators off of data that's not maybe even in a system yet. And so you'll hear things like robotic process automation, RPA, that allows you to take a manual process and maybe get data out of a system that otherwise wouldn't be accessible and bring that data into an area where we can begin working with it. And so really this step is all about identifying where is key data, where is it, how do I get access to it, and if I don't have it, how do I go down the path of understanding how I can get that data and start using it. The next one is really all about technology infrastructure. What are the things that we need to put in place in order to really leverage our data? So, the key points here are don't get caught up on the hype of the latest technology, really wanting to stay focused on the value that we can bring. Determine if an operational system can support our reporting needs. And so if you think about maybe you're using an ERP system. If you're a manufacturing client, you're using an ERP system, and that ERP system may have the reporting that you need to do some of your reporting, but chances are it won't do all of them. So how do we balance the reporting that we have inside of our core application versus the different other data elements that we maybe need to pull out of our accounting system, and how do we bring those together? And if number 2 is not an option, how can we start to think about more of a data warehousing solution? Is this going to be a cloud application, or is it going to be on premise? And how can we integrate and move data to a data warehouse, and then how will we build reports? There's technology decisions to be made all along here. And the thing that we really try to encourage our clients to do is not to get so focused on the popular tools, but really stay focused on the value that you're trying to drive, and make sure the tool that you choose is going to meet that need that you have and really bring you the value. And I think that is one of the reasons why we feel like we can bring value to our clients, as we have a perspective on those things. All right, so talk about a little bit about getting to insights. Some of the keys that I would highlight here is that reports should make key takeaways be easy to spot. So sometimes I don't know how many of you have ever gotten a report, and the report was an Excel spreadsheet, and it was a bunch of columns along the top and a bunch of rows and data everywhere in that spreadsheet. And the person that built the spreadsheet and the report could probably look at it and tell what was important, but for the casual observer, it's not very clear what your eye should focus on when you see it. It requires a lot of work to sort through all that information. So making sure that we bring things that are important to the surface and make them easy to understand. And really, Josh will get into this more in his portion of the presentation, but they should really tell a story. And there should be a plan for how insights are going to be shared with others. Most often when we find something important with data, it's important that we share that out. And then good reports should not just show, aggregated results, meaning, it shouldn't just show us one line orders and how many orders we had, but a good report should allow you to drill into the details of that so that you can see what the underlying data looks like and how we can take action on that as well. Okay, and the last one here is the people and processes. And there's a few questions that we need to ask when we talk about, what kind of people do I need and what kind of processes do I need in order to really establish a data strategy and a data culture. And the questions to ask are, how will my organization handle a new data strategy? If you've been providing reports to the business, but they were mainly a manual process, the organization may be well suited to receive data in a new way. But if you've never had reports in an organization, you need to start thinking about how will your organization react to that, and how do you start to breed this idea of a data culture within the org. Do your people need training? And should we align analysts to business units, or should those reside inside of IT? And what are those, how will IT support us in an ongoing way? And as consultants, oftentimes we get brought in to help organizations establish a data culture, but part of that is making sure that they have the pieces in place from a people and process standpoint, so that that data culture can continue to not just exist, but flourish and hopefully grow and expand. So really, if I was to sum it all up of what it really takes, we oftentimes talk about how our goal at iBailey Analytics is to make every company a data company. And when I think about what makes an organization a data organization, it's really treating data as a company asset, enabling the executive team to make timely and strategic decisions, providing the visibility to frontline staff for a day-to-day decision making, and having the discipline to use that data to improve. And gaining deeper understanding on your customers and your competitors, and then making sure that strategy can adapt over time. Okay.
All right, time for polling question number 3 here. That should be open. How would you describe your organization's data strategy? All right, grab those last few there. Okay, here you go. Here's your results.
Yeah, great. Very good. All right, well, congratulations to those that are in good shape, and looks like we have some that are getting started, so that's great. So let's, one of the key aspects of a data strategy, and in most cases for most clients, is this concept of a data warehouse. And so I want to spend just a few minutes talking about some of the benefits of a data warehouse. We follow a kind of a tried and true methodology when it comes to bringing data to the forefront, and that starts with discovering data, understanding where it is. This goes back to those steps of establishing a data strategy, connecting to data and extracting that data, transforming it, being able to report on it, and then maintain and monitor and audit that process on an ongoing basis. I want to give a little analogy here, and if you don't remember anything from this presentation today, I hope this is the one that you maybe think back on and remember. And I want to compare analytics within an organization a lot like the way a restaurant operates. If you think about it, a restaurant has, I guess in my mind, 3 main sections. You've got, on one side, you've got what I'm going to call a pantry, where you're going to bring raw materials, raw food in, and it's going to be staged there and it's going to be stored there. And then on the other side of the restaurant, you've got a dining area where you're hoping people are going to come and have a good experience, going to be able to eat and enjoy themselves. And right in the middle of this, we've got this idea of we've got this kitchen. And if you think about a restaurant, uh, there's a lot of ways that things could go wrong within a restaurant. But if things aren't going well in the kitchen, you can be pretty well assured that things are not going to be going very well out in the dining room. And so I want to talk about this and use this analogy in terms of how data moves through an organization. So as you're transacting and doing things within your organization every day, you've got this data that you're creating, gathering, capturing, and it's really being done in kind of a raw format. It's being put into a system in the way that the system needs to use it. And then on the other side of the organization, you've got all these people that are very hungry for information. And what we sometimes see, and Josh spoke to this a little bit, is that you will see somebody try to go and connect, maybe a reporting tool to raw data, and they go and they build a report, but a little bit the same way that if you were to try to bring raw food out to a dining area, people may not have a great experience. When you don't have this idea of a data warehouse that can combine and bring data together and curate it, you're not going to have the consistency that you want of how you're delivering information to the organization. So this data warehouse really serves as that place where data is brought together from multiple places, it's curated, and then it's presented in a way that people who are wanting to use that data can consume it, can use it, and it's a pleasant experience. So that's my little analogy for the day. If we take that down to a little bit more of a technical layer, what we find is the best insights usually take data from more than one source. And so, you want to create this asset that everyone can use. And so you've got data sources, whether they're coming from things in the cloud, whether they're coming from legacy on-premise systems. IoT is the short for Internet of Things. If you've got devices that are beeping out there and generating data, how do we gather all that up? How do we put it into like a data lake as a first stage, and then eventually, hopefully, to a data warehouse? And then the semantic layer becomes that dining area where we're going to present that information to our end users. And I want to just talk real briefly, and we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but a lot of people ask, me and others in our organization, what is the difference between a data lake and a data warehouse? And sometimes these terms get used interchangeably. A data lake really focuses on centralizing data in its raw and unchanged format and putting it in a place where we can begin working with it. And there's some common use cases, for this. Sometimes you can generate KPIs right off of that raw data without needing to do a lot of curation and transformation of that data. It's a good place to do auditing, and data scientists often like to work with data that's more in a raw, unchanged format. But then on the other side, the data warehouse really focuses more on accuracy, accessibility, the organization of data. And it really should be a place where people can come that aren't technical. They shouldn't have to know how to write code in order to get to reports and dashboards. And so if you think about this, the data lake is meant for a small number of technical users, where we always want the data warehouse to support a larger number of less technical users. So what are some of the solutions that we offer around this? And really, I break it into three main categories. I would say one is, hey, build me some reports. I don't have a lot going on from a data infrastructure standpoint. I've got a limited number of sources. I just need some reports so I can better run my business. And sometimes it's, hey, I think I might need a data warehouse, but I don't know that I have the people to really do that. And so could you help me build that? And I might even need to have you help me manage that for a period of time while I maybe find somebody that I can hire that can help with that. And then sometimes we find clients who have built legacy data warehouse infrastructures, maybe on-premise servers, and they're looking to take advantage of cloud applications and the cloud environment. And so they want us to come in and help them migrate that data warehouse to the cloud and maybe train their people on those things. So those are some of the different ways that we find clients looking for help. I'm actually gonna skip over because I want to leave a few minutes here for Josh.
All right. So as Nate's been talking about, all the back end work, all this that data warehousing work is is really critical to have a successful deployment of a tool such as Tableau. What I have pulled up here first is just Tableau's mission statement. I love starting with this, where it says, "We help people see and understand data." That's what they do. And so as we keep that in mind, I'm going to show a demo of what Tableau looks like for a user, for an end user. Um, and so if I come over here, um, you'll see that I'm in my browser, and this is a demo site that we have set up. This is called Tableau Online, and it's really easy to get set up. You can have one developer, and then you can have many viewers that can log on here and see different dashboards that are created. And so you see I have different folders here. I'm going to go ahead and click into generic demos. Here I can see some thumbnails of different dashboards that have been created. I'm going to drill into the Superstore dashboard, and you see the different the worksheets here. I'm going to start at the beginning, a very good place to start on the overview. Um, and let me just pull over. I see some Q&As coming in the chat, so Nate, be sure to stop me if I need to address something here. Um, and so what we
I
see
will.
here is Tableau, and up here on the top, just a general overview. We have some KPIs across the top. We got sales, profit, average discount, quantity. Right here in the middle, kind of the focus of the dashboard is a map, and you'll see that it's color coded according to this legend over here, where the more orange means it's less profitable, the more blue means the more profitable it is. And so as you hover over, you can see, okay, Tennessee, for example, they have they're highlighted orange, so my eyes are drawn to them, and I can instantly see cities within that state of like, okay, which ones are more profitable, which ones are less, Colorado, etc. So if I click on Colorado, you'll notice that the graphs change down here on the bottom. These graphs look really weird because we are now only focused in on Colorado data. Up here on the top, our KPIs have changed. We see profit is negative, so that's not good. We kind of want to analyze why is that happening. And so it's fully interactive. You can click on different things in here, but let's go ahead and drill in a little bit and figure out why we are finding some issues with our profitability. So I come to the customers tab. This is kind of similar KPIs across the top, except they are compared across the different regions: west, east, central, south. And so if I click on central, that's where Colorado is. I think it might be in west, but central looks to be doing poorly compared to the other regions. And so here in the scatter plot, each dot here represents one customer, and then you'll see their sales on the x-axis and their profit on the y-axis. And you'll see that it's color coded to denote red means, hey, the more we sell to these people, the less money we make. And so that's kind of concerning. So what I can do as a viewer is I can simply drag and drop, be like, okay, let's see what's going on with these people. So I highlight them, I hover over them, and then I can click on this little icon called View Data, and you'll see it pop up here with a summary, kind of a familiar format for many of us in a column and row format. And I can see, okay, here's the customer name, profit ratio, profit, and sales. So I have this condensed list of a couple of our customers. But let's say I want to drill in a little bit more. I can drill into the individual orders of these people. And so for Linda, for example, she's had a few orders with us, and I can see the different sales and the profit numbers that way. And I can organize it, sort it different ways right here in the view. Now, let's say I have account representatives for these different people, and I want the account reps to be held responsible and be like, okay, let's figure out how we can turn around, especially some of these lower ends here, and start making a profit. And so I can hit this download button, downloads as a CSV, and it's pushed, and I can email it directly to the sales rep. So I can exit out of that, and I can clear out my selections and kind of go back to my main story. So what you just saw there is within 2 minutes, I was able to go from a national overview of my data on one page, and I went right down into an individual customer's order within 2 minutes. and I was able to pinpoint exactly what action I needed to take, and I was able to take it. And that's kind of the power of a well-built dashboard in tools such as Tableau, because the data warehouse layer is there, and you're able to know what kind of metrics you're after, and you can service them in such a way at this national level. You can go down to the state level, and inside the state level, you go into the city level, and then you can go into the customers. So that kind of the drill down capabilities is where Tableau really shines.
Hey,
So I
Josh,
can, yeah, go ahead, Nate.
real quick. We've had several questions come in about, um, uh, comparing the tools, Tableau, Power BI, Domo.
Mhm.
Maybe just a quick overview on your perspective on that and what you see, or if you could, I don't want to throw off your flow if you've got some other things, but just during at some point, if we could maybe just
Yeah.
talk to those as well.
No, these are great questions. The tool comparison is really huge. And so I'll be upfront here. I am biased towards Tableau because I started on Tableau, but I do know Power BI very well. And so I can use both tools. And I'll tell you this, that no matter what visualization tool you use, you can make a really bad dashboard really fast. Um, the important thing with any data visualization is understanding the key concepts of visual analytics, of some data viz strategies. And there's several books out there. There's several. It's kind of a growing industry, the data viz experts. And so I've seen some really awesome Power BI dashboards, and I've seen some really bad Tableau dashboards, vice versa. And same with Domo and the other viz tools out there. It's a
Yeah.
matter of how do you use color, how do you use positioning, how do you use the different chart types. You'll notice that there's just a bunch of bar charts and scatter plots. There's not really too much craziness going on in some of these dashboards because the designers chose specifically to help the user understand the data that was being presented. Um, but if we
And
want to get into, yeah,
Oh,
Nate,
Josh, I was just going to say, if I could, one of the things I think it's important to understand is that Tableau and Power BI are both considered to be leaders in
yeah,
the Gartner Magic Quadrant, meaning they see them as the tools. And I would say 90% of our clients are either using Power BI or Tableau. And I would say we see them split almost 50-50 in terms of their prevalence. And so they do have some differences in how they work a little bit, under the hood a little bit. And we can help explain some of those things. But a tool like Adomo is, I would maybe categorize as a little bit differently because it's a little bit more of a data platform. It allows you to bring data into it in a little bit more. It's I would say it's a little bit more of a data warehousing solution as well as a visualization tool, where Tableau and Power BI really focus on, just to go back to my analogy, the dining room versus the kitchen. Domo tries to be a little bit of both of those, and Tableau and Power BI are really focused on just being that visualization layer put on top.
yep,
Sorry.
yeah. And kind of going to the questions here by Lori and Maria, it's the biggest difference between Power BI and Tableau, in my opinion. Tableau is an open sandbox. It doesn't limit you in as many ways that Power BI does. In Power BI, you kind of say, I want a bar chart, and then you fill in the components of a bar chart. You're like, okay, I want a pie chart. You fill in the components of a pie chart. In Tableau, you kind of start with an empty canvas, and then you build however you want, depending on what you drag in and how you manipulate things. So Tableau is a little bit more of a steeper learning curve, but for those who are more artistic, I would say it gives a lot more freedom. And then Power BI kind of holds your hand a little bit and gives you boundaries and a container to work within, to manipulate your visualizations. So that's a little bit of um, my understanding of both of these tools. So
Great questions. Very good questions.
yeah, let's see other questions coming in here. Would love to know what books you're referring to. Yes, I had them with me like last week, but Storytelling with Data by Cole Nussbaumer Knafling. You'll recognize it when you see the book. Storytelling with Data. Big Book of Dashboards is another one. Those are the two main ones that I always recommend to people. Storytelling with Data big book of dashboards. What is the source of the data in your example? This is just a dummy data set produced by Tableau. I think it's about 10,000 rows of data just about sales for consumer goods. So nothing too special. Michael says Tableau Public is a great community to share ideas to help people get up to speed. Yes, Tableau Public is great. You can search for that yourself here if you want to go to Tableau Public, if I can spell right, gallery, and that's where you want to go to get some inspiration on what kind of Tableau can do. I have a Tableau Public profile, but yeah, you can see some amazing visualizations here just right off the top. So next question is, most of us accounting and finance types are not very creative. How do you recommend we get up to speed on the visual aspect of making a dashboard concise and focused? Great question, Laurie. I would say those two books are your go-to first, and they will really upskill you. That'll get you 80% of the way there. The 80-20 rule is true with data visualization. There are some things that are really simple to do that are really easy to learn, and it'll get you 80% there. And then after that, the rest of the 20% is kind of experience with the tools. So you can get really far really quick. Yeah, I think those are the questions, Nate.
Okay, great. How are we doing on, I know we're getting pretty close here on time.
I think we're done, yeah.
Are we? I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone for coming and attending, and I hope some of the concepts that we presented here made sense to you. If there's anything that we can help with or any questions that we can answer, please feel free. You can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to Josh. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate your time today.